This one here, see where they're at, and see what's coming at them. If you're a stationary spotter, and we showed this one last year. Again, an example of being in the wrong position relative to the storm. They're in the hail core just prior to the tornado. I'm presuming they're heading towards the clubhouse. I don't think I'd want to be storm chasing in the golf cart.
Well, they couldn't even find the golf ball.
Well, I think you'd have a hard time distinguishing golf ball from hail here.
Yeah.
Right at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you can see the hook echo. See the direction of motion. I mean, it's heading right towards them. Well, if you notice here, except for the hail, there's no wind. I mean, it's essentially this zone right through here is the relative calm that is often described before the tornado. Now, actually before that, they were probably in this portion of the storm, so prior to this hail falling, it was probably raining pretty hard, it was probably gusting pretty hard, and then that rain and gustiness let up, and now it's just this big hail, but a relatively calm wind taking place before that roaring tornado comes into their position.
So basically, if it's calm, you might be in that spot.
Well,
It's not.
you know, perhaps, but you know, you might be way down here and nowhere near that storm. And so you might have a relatively calm scenario there as well, because you're not experiencing the rain. You might be experiencing maybe something in the way of a 10 or 15 mile an hour inflow in towards it. But because it's not blowing real hard, and it's certainly not raining, and it's certainly not hailing, you might think that's kind of a calm. Now, you can take that scenario and take the storm oriented just as it is, instead of moving it this way, move it this way. And so you could be positioned down here, and you're looking to your northwest, and you see the dark sky coming at you, and it is still a relative calm compared to what you're going to experience when the tornado hits. Again, it is a relative calm by comparison. This is an interesting one because it encapsulates several different things you want to be watching for. This was a supercell storm that the rear flank downdraft became the dominant feature on that. And so as we look at this here, up where the T is at, over here to the left of the T is the remnants of the hook echo of the supercell storm, and directly above the T, where you can kind of see the yellows up towards this W in Wellington, was the inflow notch that was wrapped around the forward part. And over here was the forward flank downdraft precipitation, which appears to be weakening in nature, but this very fat red that you see there is the rear flank downdraft, and as you can see there, it's the most significant feature on this here. So in this particular case, you're seeing kind of a change in phase here from the supercell being the most dominant characteristic to the rear flank downdraft. And as a result of that, these folks that are here in the town of Harmon and Hollister here are directly in the path of this very strong straight line wind that's going to be coming out of this. And here you can see that shelf cloud out in the sky, and so back here behind it, very heavy rainfall that you can see right here behind the shelf cloud, which would be a line of this blue here. And I can't say for sure how strong the winds are because I don't have that velocity data to go along with it, but having the velocity data, I have a good idea of how strong those winds actually would be. Now, as I mentioned before, remember just north of the Bow Echo's apex, right up here, possible for a small tornado to develop. Look at the storm relative velocity data, look for some bright spots along that lead edge between the red and the green colors as to indicate rotation center. And obviously there should still be an evidence of rotation up here, green inbound, red outbound, with the remnants of the hook echo as well. And that would be another possible location for tornado formation. In the case of the spotters at X, and you're the radio operator and you want to tell them what to do, say hunker down, because you're going to have a very tremendous squall line of heavy rain that visibility is going to probably drop to zero as that comes on through. And having access to the velocity data, you can give them an idea of how strong a wind they might be able to anticipate with that. In this case here, you see this northeast bound supercell storm. You're off to the south, looking off to your northwest. Here you can see somewhat of an inflow notch right here, this echo minimum with these couple spots of green in here. So there's the inflow notch there. Here, of course, you can see the hook echo here. And again, this all is translating to the northeast. So from that position, here's their look in the sky. They're looking at the rear flank downdraft shelf cloud and all the heavy rain that's associated with that. Now, folks on the other side of it, up in the front end of the storm, there's their position. Again, that storm's moving after them. So that's going to be their path through it. Right now, what they're looking at out to their southwest is the shelf cloud at the leading edge, ahead of the forward flank downdraft. And that smooth sky behind it is the heavy rain that they're going to eventually get into. And eventually they'll get into heavier and heavier rainfall, and in fact, maybe there'll be some, not maybe, there is some embedded hail that's taking place. So not a lot of big hail, but a lot of small to medium-sized hail in that. So your position, again, it's all important. If you're a mobile spotter, you're trying to position yourself in the inflow air so that you can see these lower hanging cloud bases in the rear end, looking for evidence of wall cloud formation, upward spiraling taking place for the possible development of the tornado. And again, if you're a stationary spotter at home or wherever you happen to be, again, just know where you're at in relationship to the storm on radar so you know what to anticipate from the storm that's going to be coming on through. An example of how preparedness saves lives, this was up in Northwest Ohio a few years back, a movie theater that was full of people on a weekend day. Watches were out, the warning was out well in advance. Emergency management got the siren sounded a good half hour before the storms arrived. All these people were hustled out of their seats into the safe locations in the theater. Not long afterwards, the tornado threw cars into the front row of that theater. This was that tornado.
First 20, 926 to 20. Advise family our desk at signal 1. You have a large tornado on the ground, probably a quarter mile in diameter, and is going through the town of Vanderbilt at this time.
So the reports can really make a difference. This is it for the program, but before I finish completely here, I want to jump out of this for just a moment here and just poke around our website for a minute or two. But for those who have an interest, we've got an all-day Storm Spotter Symposium taking place, I guess it's a week from tomorrow in Greenwood. And it's a great presentation. We've got an expert storm chaser who's got a lot of great video and a lot of good stories to tell and to talk about how to stay safe as a mobile chaser. We've got an expert coming in from Louisville to talk about squall line tornadoes. I'll be going into more depth about the flash flood aspect of storms here in central Indiana and the things to be watching for. The program runs 8 hours long. The cost is $35, which pays for the speakers, pays for a buffet breakfast, buffet lunch, and 2 snacks, a morning and an afternoon snack, and all the materials that go along with it. So if you think you might have an interest, I think we still have room for close to 100 folks, so there's still plenty of seating left. But again, before I head out of here, I just want to go back to our website for just a moment here, because I made mention of looking at the radar data, and let's see here what we have. So here is our Indianapolis radar site. Of course, you know, clear skies, we're not going to have anything going on out there. But I do want to point out, over on the left-hand side is where all your links are at. And the main ones that you're going to be typically using when you first call it up is going to be the reflectivity, and it's going to be in base mode. Directly below that, you can see the velocity information. Excuse me, I'm like on the edge of a cough here. But the relative, again, is for the rotation that's present within the rotating supercells. And the base velocity, you're using that for the strong straight line winds. So those are the elements that you want to use primarily. You can put those into looping mode, and when you do so, make sure that you turn the update button to on so that you're refreshing every 5 minutes with new data. If you want to see precipitation estimates, 1 hour rainfall totals, or storm totals, just clicking on either one of those. It will show how much rain, based on the radar estimate, has fallen at your location. Yes?
On the reflectivity, what's the difference between composite and base?
With the composite versus base, the composite, what that displays is the strongest echo anywhere within a vertical column relative to the storm. And what you can do with that is you can do a side-by-side overlay. Put your base reflectivity here, your composite here, and where you notice differences in the storm. In the cases where you have real strong echoes showing up on the composite at a given location, but not on the base, what that's telling you is that there's strong echoes aloft that have yet to come down, and oftentimes that's a signature that's tied to severe weather. So that's the difference between those two.
So base is basically your lowest level.
When you are looking at the base data, you are looking at the lowest elevation scan, a half degree above the horizon. The composite, again, is going to take an element anywhere within the vertical column, and each one of the pixels over a horizontal area is going to take the strongest one anywhere within the vertical column and paint that on the image. So there's a little bit of difference there.